My name is Brett Matum. I'm a principal consultant for Redify in Melbourne and a professional Scrum trainer at scrum.org. The goal of my talk is to discuss whether Scrum and Prince2 can work together. I'm not going to go through and try to sell Scrum or to try and sell Prince2. We're just simply going to explore the facts of the two approaches and determine if they can work together. The talks are quite long because there's a lot to cover, so we'll start off with some common observations, look at some definitions so that we're on the same page, and then I'll do a quick 101 on Scrum and Prince2. Then we'll look at the commonalities between the two and also the differences. Then we'll move on to the common friction points and why there is so much friction between project managers, Scrum Masters and Agilists. Then we'll look at the common roles and how they work together, and the final part is where the main part of the talk is the actual bond. How do they actually work together and whether they can work together, and we'll end off with looking at some common pressure points that you need to go through. Now, the first thing from a few observations. The first thing is we need to understand software development is hard. We have the skills, we have the methods, we have the techniques as well as the tooling. Everything is at our disposal, yet we still battle. We find that software development is hard, we fail often. We often, when we start working, only understand and get to grips with the real issues when we open the code and start dealing with this. I like equating this to an applied science like the medical industry. They too have these skills, techniques and technologies, albeit a bit more mature than our industry, and they only really get to deal with the problem when they actually open up that patient and deal with the problems of that patient. They need to be able to see and then react accordingly. We are very much the same. We have weak requirements, challenging technologies, and we'll only get to deal with it and understand it once we start using it and exploring it. If we look at the traditional approaches over the years from the Chaos Manifesto studies done between 2002 and 2010, what you're going to actually find through is your traditional waterfall projects had about a 14% failure rate with 57% of applications being challenged, only with 29% of those projects being successful on time and within budget. Over the time as Agile has been more adopted, the figures have slightly changed. It's still not rosy. We've down to 9% failure applications, 49% of applications challenged, and 42% success, which is a good improvement. Yet that still means 58% of projects are still being challenged or failed. If you're investing money into the project and knowing that right up front you're going to have a 50% odd of actually having a hard time, stress, over time, over budget, would you do things differently? Now, another interesting fact that we have to observe from the Standish Group study at XP 2002, Jim Johnson did a bit of research looking at features used in a typical application. Only 7% of features are always used, 13% often, and 16% sometimes. Most of the other features are 19% rarely used and 45% never used, meaning most probably near around 64% of our product, or 2/3 of our software development, is not actually being used. Only 1/3 of the value of what we do is actually used. The other area that we need to look at is the realm of complexity. Rolf Stacey at the University of Hertfordshire did the complexity theory, where we looked at technology, starting from technology being close to certainty, where we deal with this technology every single day. We understand the technology, we understand the behaviors and the ins and outs of it, to newer bleeding edge and undocumented technology, where we actually have to start figuring it out, and it's far from certain. Likewise with requirements to our clients. We could be in very close agreement and close understanding of those requirements, or we could be on the other end of the scale, far from understanding and far from agreement to what those requirements are, with a lot of ambiguity and a lot of vagueness in those requirements. Now, dealing with these requirements, if we're dealing with far from agreement requirements and very uncertain products, we're in the realm of complexity and or chaos. And in this realm of chaos, it's actually very difficult to manage, and neither Prince2 nor Scrum is actually going to be able to help you in this zone. Ideally, Scrum is aimed at where we have complex scenarios, complex products with reasonably agreed requirements with a lot of uncertainty still in it, and technology that we also are at risk at or have challenges with, but it's not totally unknown. So we're looking at the complex world or complicated world. Simple applications where everything is certain, from the requirements to the side of technology certainty, they're probably easy and don't necessarily need complex overheads of Prince2 or Scrum. It's just simply get on with the job and just do it because it's very well known. It should be pretty day-to-day routine. When we look at traditional waterfall approaches, you'll normally only find that product software is only delivered at the end. So they go through the original planning, designing, code, testing, release and review stage. Right at the end does the customer gain access to it and sees this. Now the value is only really defined through the test stages, where very skilled testers go through and test this application, only to find that there's weaknesses in the requirements or weaknesses in the code or requirements that have not been met, and then the cycle goes through and begins. We've all been there, we've all done that, and we've all got blood on the t-shirt, and it keeps going on. And what still is amazing to us, we still do it. It constantly happens. We still go through and make the same mistakes over and over again. It's a double face palm. In this section, I want to have a quick look at Scrum and the 101 of Scrum, so we're all on the same page in the understanding of what it is. So the official definition of Scrum, it's a framework within which people can address complex problems and productively and creatively deliver products of the highest possible value. It's aimed in the realm of complex problems and complex solutions. The framework is lightweight, meaning it's got a set of core events rules that has to be adhered to, but it's lightweight, allowing organizations to customize it to their needs, to their software, to their environment, to their culture. It's pretty easy to understand. It comes on a 13-page document and the rules are pretty easy, yet it is extremely difficult to master, and most with unskilled Scrum Masters, the chance of a failure is pretty high. One of the key concepts within Scrum is to limit the work in process, having short, high deliverable sprints that deliver value, right, and opportunistic pieces of functionality. It starts off with requirements. We gather our requirements and capture our requirements into a list called the product backlog. This list of requirements is then continually throughout the whole project refined and groomed. New requirements are added into it, changed and updated in place. The backlog is also ordered from a priority side or an order side, which means it's ordered against business value, business risk, return of investment, technology risk. We'll deem what is more important than the next to go through. Looking at that, the coverage of getting those features that are really used and always used, and trying to eliminate waste of writing unnecessary features and taking away the 2/3 of the unnecessary features that are seldomly used or never used. The backlog is a critical aspect to manage the scope of work of the product. In this time box, when we create this time box of this iteration for building the software, it's typically 1 to 4 weeks. We go through and plan how we're going to do it. We analyze how we're going to go through and deal with that code solution, design the solution, code it, test it, make sure it is deployable. At the end of that 2 week time box, we deliver something potentially shippable. We then review it to make sure that it meets the quality of the organization and what was initially defined. One of the core philosophies of Scrum is empiricism. What this means is constantly inspect our processes, our work, our technologies and our approaches, and adapt if something is not working for us. It's to prevent us going down the same bad path over and over again. We need to start doing corrective action and building this, especially in light that we are dealing in the realm of complexity where there is a lot of ambiguity and a lot of unknowns. We have to make sure that we constantly inspect to see if we are on the right track, we are delivering the right requirements to the customers. That is what the customer expects. The processes are accepted as imperfect, so we understand we have challenges in our organization, skill issues. We're dealing with bleeding edge technologies that people haven't had time to study, and in actual fact there's very little information out there for people to get on top of those technologies, yet they are skilled enough to be able to figure it out. The outputs are also often unpredictable because we cannot plan it. It has never been done before, and it's unlikely that we're going to repeat the same thing. Likelihood is if we had to do it a second time, we'll do it totally differently. Scrum is also iterative, so instead of going through it right at the end of the release, we go through and deliver one product with late visibility to customers. We rather go through an iterative cycle, delivering little high top ordered features at a time. We analyze, design, code, test, release that, go into the next iteration or sprint. This iterative process, each sprint or each iteration is typically 1 to 4 weeks. It's not uncommon for very large products to have several teams working over several months of iterations, but the whole idea here is constant, frequent and incremental increases of potentially shippable software. At time, this could be early return of investment to the business, because if we're delivering the highest order values first, they can be put into production early and started to be used. If we look at the Scrum, so we have this ordered product backlog that's constantly groomed. We then move into a sprint planning cycle and we plan our sprint cycle. In our sprint planning, we determine how we're going to do it and how we're going to approach this. We then, in the sprint, start our time box session of 1 to 4 weeks where we build that software. Every day it's been coded, it's been tested, it's made sure it's deployable. The team also every morning inspect the progress of how they are tracking, and if things are going bad, they are looking at adapting. If things are going, they're looking at what else they can do. At the end of this time box of 4 weeks, we should have an output of potentially shippable software that we can either hold for a few sprints and incrementally improve it, or put it into production. We also review this potentially shippable software. Is it to the quality that we want as an organization? Are there zero defects? Does it work? Can it be deployed? We also then do a retrospective on the team. What is slowing down the team? What's impairing the team? How can we improve as a team? Let's now move on to a discussion on PRINCE2 and give a 101 of PRINCE2. A lot of people get confused with project management in IT, thinking waterfall is project management. I must really stress that waterfall is not PRINCE2 and not a normal project management structure. PRINCE2 is an acronym for Projects in Controlled Environments. It's basically a process-driven project management standard. It's aimed at controlled environments where control over finances, budgeting, resourcing is needed, control of larger projects with programs of work. It's also a flexible project management structure, allowing it to be tailored to the organizational's need. It also has a set of core rules that need to be followed and adhered to. It's also built on experience over years of project management. The basic side of PRINCE2. A project starts off with a mandate. Someone wants to build a project. We then go through a startup of the project where we formulate who the executive and the project management team is, and then we go through an initiating a project, getting approval from the directorship in that project. We go through the initiation, get the requirements, create a project plan. After that, we then start going through an iterative cycle called stages and building features or product in stages. We start managing the stage boundaries, the start of the stage and at the end of the stage. While the stage is underway, the delivery team manages the product delivery and actually builds that project. Completing it, we conclude the stage, we review the stage, make sure that stage is correct, and we repeat multiple stages until the project is actually done. At the end of the project, we then go into the closure of the project and get approval from the directorship of closure of that project and finally terminate and close the project. PRINCE2 is based on seven core principles. The first is continued justification. It starts off at the with the business case. Do we justify the project? Does it add value to the organization and does it align with the business strategy? It's also looking at each stage. Can we justify the stage? Is the cost of the stage worth it? Is there a return on the stage? So every stage is justified. It's also iterative and it's managed by stages. The focus of PRINCE2 is each stage is to deliver high quality product. So at the end of each stage, we want some product. It can be tailored to suit the environment. It's not fixed cast in stone and a hard rule book that has to go through. Yet there are a lot of core principles and practices that have been established over years. It follows a managed by exception mechanism or management style where we rather manage and deal with the exceptions than command and control professionals. It also has several principles to learn from experience, keeping lessons learned logs. There are also a set of defined rules and responsibilities in the team to facilitate good communication. To clarify some terms, a project is typically a structure created to achieve a specific business benefit or objective or aligned to business strategy. It has a finite start date and a finite end date. And in between that side, the delivery team builds the project management manage it, and the directorship gives the authorizations on the project. When we start looking at larger organizations, there are normally several projects underway that all relate to the same program of work, and that means to the same strategy of the business. So for example, a company might be putting in a new system. That system needs to be developed, but it also is going to need to be rolled out and infrastructure to be procured, marketing in the organization to be done, training in the organization to be done, and a lot of subsequent little projects under the way to go through and deal with this project. It might be exposed to external customers, and we have to deal with training, marketing, promotion, supply chain management of this product that we are building. So to get this program of work out, there are a lot of different departments, different teams within the organization, all working on areas that are related to the same program. In a larger organization, you might even a larger organization, you'll have a project manager that has a portfolio of work, which is a set of several programs of work, normally unrelated, and they just need to be managed to ensure that the organization can, at a capacity manage so many projects at one time. If we look at the program of work scope, the challenge with programs of work is each little project in that project of work may deal with things like software development. It might be infrastructural stuff. It could be training or logistics, marketing, distribution if you're actually building commercial software and need to market, supply chain managers, vendor training and communication, and a lot more that you could add to your own environment. In some cases, all those divisions, departments, teams might be within your organization, and sometimes they'll get outsourced to different organizations. Each organization, each team may have totally different methodologies. Some might use Agile, some might use Scrum, some might be traditional waterfall, and others might have their own standard. Sometimes you cannot dictate to a supplier you need to be of X methodology. You just simply, as a project management team, have to manage that project and the stages, making sure you get those delivery of projects. Let's look at the common ground between Scrum and PRINCE2. There are quite a lot of philosophies that are common between the two. Firstly, let's look at exceptions. Both Scrum and PRINCE2 don't subscribe to command and control. Taylorism died in the early 18 or 1900s, and it's proven not to work. We're dealing with skilled professionals here, and let them get on with the job and do what they have to do. As a management team, let us get involved when there are exceptions and that those skilled workers need help. Both Scrum and PRINCE2 are iterative. Scrum, we call our iterations sprints. They are time boxed to 1 to 4 weeks, and in PRINCE2 there are stages, and those can go for any period of time and deliver product. Both deliver product at the end. Both focus on quality. Scrum focuses on the quality of the product being built in that team, on that backlog, and PRINCE2 is looking at the overall quality of the program of work across multiple projects, each project contributing to the overall quality of the program. The next is the justification. Both Scrum and PRINCE2 are constantly justifying whether we should proceed. It's there to eliminate waste. Scrum goes through and justifies each sprint as well as all the requirements, constantly looking what is important, what's the highest order stuff to build. And in PRINCE2, is this stage necessary? What's the cost involved of this? Can we do this? And it justifies each stage. Both Scrum and PRINCE2 look at the past and learn from the past. In Scrum, we're constantly doing retrospectives, looking at our tools and techniques of how we deal with the team. How can we improve? What is going wrong? What are our lessons learned? And we constantly strive to inspect and adapt and use empiricism, as does Scrum, as does PRINCE2. They're constantly inspecting the process and writing down and logging lessons learned. So this knowledge can be transferred from project to project and project manager to project manager. Both of core believers in retrospection and constant improvement as an organization, team, or project teams. Communication in both is important. They all have distinct roles, and communication is well established. PRINCE2 does use a more formal communication pattern, yet its focus is still on good, clear, unambiguous communication. Scrum is also very focused on communication, but prefers more face-to-face interactions with a pen, whiteboard paper, and frequent communication. Both deal with risk mitigation. Scrum totally focuses on reducing complexity, improving quality, and enhancing communication, all things that impact and add risk to a project. and so does PRINCE2. All the principles and processes of these two practices of Scrum and Prince both are around risk mitigation. Both are customizable to suit that organization. Scrum is a lightweight framework allowing a lot of customization, and Prince2 is an adaptable methodology for your organization. There are limits to where it can be adjusted and changed. The core framework of Scrum, for example, empiricism, time boxing, are core to Scrum. Taking those out or changing those is breaking the core rules of Scrum, and then you're not using Scrum. And the same applies to Prince2. If you are not doing project inception or managing in stages and doing one big project, well, you're not really doing Prince2 either. So there is a level of customization to still keep it in the framework of Scrum or the methodology of Prince2. Both have the defined roles. In Scrum, we have the product owner, Scrum Master, and the team. In Prince2, we have the executive, the project manager, and the delivery teams, roughly equated to each other on how they work. The business, the people that manage and control the process, and then the people and the teams that do the work. Leadership. Scrum focuses on the servant leadership principle and delegates this authority into a self-organizing team. The team self-organizes, they manage themselves. In Prince2, also it's not focused on command and control, and rather be hands-off, giving that authority to the delivery manager or manager of that team. It's up to that manager if they would like to make self-organizing teams internally. There are also differences between Scrum and Prince2, and let's go through and have a look at some of these differences. Firstly, the audience that they are intended for. Prince2 is of any type of project. This could be software development, it could be infrastructural, it could go down to building, manufacturing, implementing a new plant, pipeline, roadway. It goes across different types of projects. Scrum, however, is mainly used in the software development industry, but can also be applied to a lot of different types of projects, especially where empiricism is needed. The focus of the two also different. Prince2 is a focus across a program of work with several projects running at the same time, all delivering to the same business value or strategy. These different projects that are running are against different teams with different product deliverables. A software development team building a software product, a marketing team coming up with an advertising and marketing campaign, a training team building up training materials or supply chain management, or a whole lot of different projects, each one with totally different deliverables. In Scrum is more focused to a single project, maybe with multiple teams on that project, but they're all delivering the same product at the end of the day. There's nothing wrong with having multiple different teams, for example your software development team running Scrum and the infrastructure team also running Scrum, so does the marketing department run Scrum. However, each team is focused on their product, their delivery, that one single project. If we look at project resourcing and procurement, Scrum does not have any definition of putting teams together, managing logistics, software licensing for developers, desks, computers, all of that. It's assumed that management has done it, or project management has done this. In Prince2, this is actually included in the project initiation phase and in the early stages of the project lifecycle. The approach, the interesting thing here is in Prince2, they leave the delivery approach up to the delivery team. Each team on each project that goes through and delivers may choose their own approach. They may choose Scrum, they may choose Agile, they may choose any approach that they like. For a Scrum team, the approach is we build using the Scrum framework, and that is our approach. So PRINCE2 does not have an approach and does not specify an approach, yet Scrum is an approach. In terms of risk management, Scrum has risk mitigation strategies in place to reduce risk by empiricism, frequent inspection of work, constant communication, bringing the product owner closer to the development team, inspecting and making sure we are on track in a complex world. However, it does not have a full-blown risk management strategy. In PRINCE2, there is a risk management strategy. It allows you to choose your management strategy, but insists on having a risk management strategy. Risk management goes well further and beyond pure software development. It goes into environmental risk, health risk, organizational risk, dealing with things like sensitivity and secretivity of intellectual property of that organization to give competitive advantage, dealing with potentially risk that may threaten lives. So we're dealing with a full-blown risk management strategy within PRINCE2, yet Scrum is just a mitigation strategy that reduces the risk of software development, and that feeds very well nicely into the risk management strategy. In Scrum, one of the biggest difference is the time boxing concept. In Scrum, we limit our iterations to 1 to 4 weeks with a maximum of 4 weeks. And in PRINCE2, there is the stage or the duration of each stage is not really defined. So in Scrum, it's a fixed short iterative period, yet a stage in PRINCE2 could go through from a long period. In Scrum, the reason why it is short is to mitigate complexity risk, to ensure and inspect the work that has been done, to make sure the team is not going off on the wrong direction, to try force productivity and get early visibility and use of the product. It's purely around risk mitigation. Another big difference on the time boxing thing, in Scrum, all events are time boxed. By time boxing, this means a sprint is 1 to 4 weeks. At the end of that time box, it stops. It does not resume even if the team is late. One of the key principles is to help the teams change their behavior in improving. For example, let's say a team is building some software, they've agreed to build something. Near the end of the sprint, they've only delivered 50% of the functionality that they've intended to. What we are going to go through, there's something wrong here. They could have been challenged with bad estimation, or they may not have had good requirements and a lot of ambiguity up front, or there could have been external challenges that they were faced, infrastructural challenges. By time boxing it, we can inspect and say, is this an estimation problem, and deal with that estimation problem early and try to correct that early, instead of just going along and at the end finding we way out. If there's something impacting like bad infrastructure, that gives the management team the ability to then go through and adapt and change that infrastructure to facilitate the team. So the time boxing is very critical to bring about change within the organization. In PRINCE2, however, stages are not really time boxed. They can, and if things do go wrong, typically what will happen is that stage is then managed by exception. However, one can, and normally PRINCE2 does allow for stages to be time boxed and following the Scrum principle. There's no written rule on this. In Scrum, everything is about inspection of that program, the inspection of the development, the team, the actual product being going through the planning, the requirements are constantly groomed and inspected. Each day the team's progress is inspected. What's slowing down the team? The team themselves are inspected themselves to find out what is slowing them down, what is the impediments the team is facing. Every event within Scrum is around inspection and constant inspection. Every event is also then time box to limit work in progress and trigger frequent inspection. In Prince2, there's a lot of inspection communication around the program of work and more around the stage boundaries. So at the beginning of a sprint or an iteration, at the end of the sprint, and then managing the project and program of work as an inception as a whole. In Scrum, and Prince2, there is a difference with the executive and the product owner. In Scrum, the product owner is the person that's accountable for dealing with the project. The product owner actually is an active participant in the Scrum team. They're involved in managing the product backlog, they're managing the requirements. However, in the Prince2 model, the executives are more of decision makers and sign off on a stage and agree to the next stage and justify the next stage. So there is a big difference between the two. The product owners versus the actual executives in the Prince2. One of the other sides in terms of the product owner versus executive, Prince2 doesn't mind if the executives is a single executive or a steering committee or a committee or a management appointed team or a joint venture, as long as there's the authority to actually justify and pay for each stage. In Scrum, we only need one product owner and only would like one product owner to resolve conflict. This product owner may delegate it to someone if they don't have time, but ideally and preferably it should be one person. Scrum does not like the approach of having multiple product owners in the event to mitigate conflict of interest between the product owners. This is a business problem and not a project team's problem to solve. If there is a committee, then one of those committee members, for example the chairman or the most senior person, should then take the role of product owner, and that is the interface to the team. If there's any disputes, it's down to the decision of that one appointed person that represents that committee. In terms of requirements management, Scrum has the product backlog, but the ownership of that product backlog is on the business. Business are accountable for defining what are their business requirements and how they want what they want these products to do. In the Scrum world, we do not want to take on the risk of telling business what they want. In an example, if you're going to go buy a car, you define what you want in the car: the color, the model, the make, the seating, the audio systems, everything you define. You're not going to get the salesman telling you what you want and going through. So Scrum believes in the business has to articulate what they want so we can deliver to that business. In the Prince2 model, the requirements ownership is not defined. Normally the product management team or the delivery team do take the ownership of the requirement and managing the requirement. This does potentially have issues when scope change come. In the Scrum model, because the business deal with that requirement, if they're adding more requirements on, well, that means the business has to find the funding for those new requirements. If they want to eliminate waste and come in early, that is their prerogative too. So if they're eliminating 2/3 of the waste, the project can come in 2/3 of the time earlier from a project side. This is purely a business value and in business looking at the return of investment. In terms of scope changes, in the PRINCE2 model, the delivery team or the project team normally takes the ownership, and should new requirements or scope changes come in, they normally are forced onto the team without changes if the project management are weak and don't manage the scope changes correctly. In a well-controlled environment, then that is well managed. Where Scrum differs is Scrum wants the ownership and the control of that product backlog to be in the business hands, and the teams themselves as project teams are just purely responsible for delivering what business want. In terms of team performance, Scrum is constantly coaching the teams to constantly improve. There's constant inspection of work. It's not uncommon for Scrum Masters to go to the team, you were late with your delivery. Well, it sucks to be you. What are you going to change to improve? It's not done in a harsh way. It's more around the change, to bring around change. You were late on delivery. Sucks to be you. You're not done with building this feature. It wasn't tested. There are defects in it. Well, we're not going to accept this as done. In the next iteration, you're going to, as a team, have to fix it. What are you going to do as a team to change in order to go through and improve? With this approach, the performance of the team is going to enhance over time. PRINCE2 doesn't really define any performance and try to go through and get teams to be performant, but they do hope that teams are going to be performant, where Scrum actively tries to encourage performance and quality increases and enhancements. From a delivery team perspective, in the delivery team, there's the delivery in PRINCE2. There's the delivery manager is identified. In Scrum, the team is responsible for the delivery. They are a self-managing team. There is no manager within that team. It's the team as a whole. So the self-organization of the team and the responsibility of delivery lies within the team. The difference in terms of the management style, in Scrum, you have a Scrum Master that coaches the team on Scrum principles and helps them become self-managing and dealing with performance. The Scrum Master is there as initially as a coach, and then later down the line more of a mentor, helping the team become self-managing. The Scrum Master does not manage the team, but instead manages the implementation of Scrum and helps the team implement Scrum. In PRINCE2, there is normally a delivery manager of that project team that is responsible for that team and normally then gives the work to their team. However, in PRINCE2, the approach of how that delivery manager or that delivery team runs, it's in the hands of that delivery manager. So if the Scrum Master wants to have a self-organizing team, that is perfectly acceptable. There's a difference in configuration management. We're not talking software configuration management here. When we look at an organization, we need to retain information through documentation. And a lot of cases with organizations, documentation gets outdated. There's multiple versions coming around. In the PRINCE2 principle, there's a lot of work around creating structures to manage these documents, to manage the security of these documents so trade secrets do not go into competitors' hands. In Scrum, however, there's no configuration management, but there is documentation. Scrum does want to only create light-weighted documentation that communicates the intellectual property but cuts out the waffle. The intent here is to eliminate waste, not writing documents that will never get read, but yet retaining enough documentation to retain intellectual property of that organization. Unlike in PRINCE2 though, they don't define how to do the documentation. So although the two are different, they are very they work well with each other, where Prince2 brings in the configuration management into the side of managing the document, and Scrum introduces lightweight, without waste type documentation into Prince2. Those are the differences between the two. As you can see, there's not a lot of differences and quite a lot of commonality between it. The differences weren't that great. Let's look at the friction points now. If you start reading a lot of articles, blogs, books, going to event views and that, you'll find that there's a lot of friction between agile practitioners and project managers. Practitioners saying that there's no need for project management, and if you're in discussion forums, you'll see a lot of heated debate between the two. I've given a lot of thought around this, trying to look at why this is happening. Let's have a quick look at this. Firstly, a lot of people have been burned by traditional command and control managers that micromanage every movement of the team, every piece of work in the team. Both Scrum and Prince2 do not follow Taylorism. It died. It's gone. It's the cultural and personality of that manager that is at fault. The next is dealing with stages. In the past, when we actually built projects, we took the waterfall approach in our stages. We'll have the design stage, the analysis stage, then the design stage, and then the actual development testing stages and release stages of our product. Yet in project management, in no project management book on true project management do they say that is how a stage should be. You always do analysis. They just define stages. We as an IT industry just took the wrong choice of defining what our stage boundaries are. Yes, the stages are iterative, but instead of each iterative releasing product, we release phase of that development cycle, just the requirements. So it was a bad choice as an industry, something that we do have to acknowledge, and factually has proven to be a bad choice. All we need to do as a mindset, as an industry, is change what we understand as the term stage. A stage is to deliver working software, not complete and to the nth degree. We'll deliver it incrementally and through iterative cycles through it, but let's initially deliver the critical high value features first that give business value in the first stage. And that stage means it's built, developed and tested. Yes, we still have to analyze, we have to design, we have to build, we have to test, but each stage does that, and at the end of that stage delivers quality. We're mitigating our risk. Sadly, as an industry, we took the bad choice route. One of the other things has come through from the problem that we've endured for quite a number of years now is complacency. A lot of people has taken that the way stages have been managed is the de facto standard. We go through the old stage of the waterfall approach. It hasn't really been challenged, and when coming into the industry, we've just accepted, well, that's the way it's been done, and that's how we were taught at our universities and colleges. Yet it is all wrong and based on original bad choices. And we've become very complacent with it, and we've always seen that it hasn't worked. We've all felt the pains of that approach. Now with the agile world, we are actually introducing new changes. And in here, we have a lot of conflict that comes and occurs. We have project managers that are set in their ways, that are saying, well, this is how it has been done for many years, and they're complacent with that approach. And then we have the agile practitioners that are looking at it totally different and saying, well, it's all wrong. And in here, there's a lot of friction between the two parties. What I'm saying is we actually need to totally look at this problem differently and change our viewpoint of the world. Look at it at a different angle and say, what are we trying to achieve as an industry? We want to build high quality, good quality software very quickly. We want to deal with complexity and manage complexity to the best that we can. One of the better ways is to do an iterative cycle. Neither project manager or agile practitioner is wrong. Their values are both correct. They both are looking at it from different angles, and we need to respect each one's angle on how they go through and look at things. There are a lot of individuals from an agile side as well as a project management side and development teams that don't look at the facts. They'll jump to conclusion to how PRINCE2 works and what is project management, and likewise what is Scrum and how it goes through. There's the belief that project management is command and control waterfall, which it is clearly not. That's a very, very big misunderstanding. Likewise, there's a lot of people that think agile is, just go with the flow and do whatever you like, which is not the case. Scrum in particular is very, very tightly controlled, with a lot of inspection, a lot of adaptation, with the pure intent and objective of managing risk and reducing complexity. You also have your perfectionists from both schools that will argue to the nth degree on perfection and will not accept for anything less. Yet most organizations are in a transitionary phase. They are just starting. They realize their pains and they're starting out to adjust and change. But because they are not at the end goal of where they want to go through and get to, perfectionists give them a very hard time. It's a matter of taking these perfectionists with a pinch of salt and saying, yes, they are looking at perfection, and what we actually really have to achieve is continual improvement. We need to inspect and adapt, and as long as we are constantly improving, we'll get there at the end of the day. Yes, let's heed the advice of the perfectionists, because often they have got very, very good advices, but often there's a lot of misunderstanding there too. In terms of the roles between Prince and Scrum, well, firstly, let's look at the role of a project manager and the two working together. Well, the program manager is looking at the program of work. They're doing the project inception, they're creating the team, they're formulating and hiring teams, getting resourcing for the teams, location, logistics for the team, software licensing, whatever the project needs as a whole. It could be to a team, it could be actually more at a bigger level to a program of work, or even bigger at a portfolio of work level. And some of that might be delegated to other people. There's also vendor negotiation and management, dealing with the vendors, dealing with the contracts between vendor negotiation and the planning thereof. Then we come down to the project planning and reporting of the project plans and statuses and getting information from all the team, dealing with the issues and managing the exceptions, and juggling not pieces of work, but juggling projects and dependencies between different projects to reach the end business strategy. A very, very vital role when there are programs of work in an organization. Your Scrum Master is a coach and a mentor, that is a manager that is responsible for introducing Agile. They do not manage teams. The teams are self-managing. They're purely there as a coach to help train the team initially and show them the right practices and mentor them through that process, helping them become self-sustaining and actually learning a lot of the practices. The mentor is always going to be there, challenging the team to improve, looking at weaknesses and helping the team to improve. The Scrum Master also coaches the product owner to deal with the product backlog, because most product owners never have had the responsibility of managing the product backlog and building work in terms of high order. The coach Scrum Master helps keep a healthy backlog with the product owner and encourages the product owner to deliver that good quality backlog. They constantly help the team inspect and adapt, very vital role for a Scrum Master. If the team cannot resolve any issues internally, the Scrum Master will try help that team remove any impediments, interruptions, blocks on the team, or things that go wrong. If the Scrum Master cannot deal with it, they'll either escalate it to line management or project management. The whole idea of the Scrum Master is to keep the team focused on the current work and to increase productivity and help the team increase productivity and teach the team newer principles of software development. In terms of line management are not seen as command and control, but servant leaders, helping teams become more productive. What can they do to help the team? They're looking at process improvements, infrastructural stuff for that team. They remove impediments as well, constantly trying to remove impediments for the team. They're there to create a fail-safe environment to help the team change instead of the shouting down at the team, forcing the team then to take a reactive stance and be defensive and go into protective mode. The idea is to let the team fail, help them acknowledge that fail, and help them adjust to improve. With this approach, we are going to get healthy teams looking at constant strive for perfection and constant improvement. They're constantly inspecting the environment, the team, and whatever has to happen to help the team. Line management often offer consistency across teams. So if there's multiple projects, multiple teams, we want all teams to be using similar development standards. It could be at a risk to an organization to have too many different technologies in, or to ensure that all teams are testing in a similar way and the quality is consistent through the organization. Obviously, the line management deal with the logistics and governance within their departments and divisions. In terms of the teams are cross-functional, meaning a team consists of everything that's needed to get that work done for that stage or sprint. The team consists of programmers, testers, designers, technical writers, analysts, whatever the team needs to get that done. The team should not be able to rely on any external skill that may not have time and block the team from progress. Let's go into the detail between the two and deal with the bond and look at exactly how Scrum and PRINCE2 work. Let's go through the PRINCE2 stages and then look at where Scrum fits into each of the stages and the changes to get the two to work. We start off with the project mandate. This mandate is someone having an idea. It could be formal, it could be informal, it could be over lunch, it could be over a beer in a pub. There's a need for software. The first thing that an organization needs to do is go into the startup phase of a project. In the startup phase of the project, we want to identify, well, who as an executive is going to run and fund this and potentially run and fund this. Who's going to project manage it and get this ball rolling and start the project. The project manager is going to look at lessons learned to just make sure that we don't make the same mistakes again, and also what is good and what is worked and what shall we continue to work. If more people are needed, we elect the other management teams to help set up and start this project. We outline the business case to get justification that this is going to add return of investment to the business and it's worth spending the money. This could be very formal or it could be very informal. As long as we are saying, yes, we understand the case, we want to spend the money on this, it's good for that organization. It's up to the organization to choose the level of detail here. Then the team chooses the best approach. In terms of the approach going through is, do we buy, do we build, do we outsource? And in terms of the teams, what is the approach that we're going to go through internally of our teams? Are we going to follow waterfall, agile? It's a choice how they want to go through. They assemble a project brief on how the project is going to go through, and then start planning the actual start of the project and the initiation phase of the project. Some slight changes on the Scrum side. We'd like to identify the product owner. Who is going to go through and run this? The product owner may report to an executive, but the product owner has the final say on what's in and out of the product and what it has to deliver. Instead of the lessons learned, we'll look at previous retrospectives. In terms of the approach, in terms of team approach, we look at, is it Scrum? It is Scrum. We're going to use Scrum from the approach side. In terms of the initiating project, now this is the start of the project, when we start formulating some team members to actually start building the requirements of the project, and what are we going to do and how are we going to go about this. A lot of Scrum teams don't do this very well, and the PRINCE2 principles around initiating a project is very valuable to Scrum teams to go through and do. The first thing is we deal with the quality management strategy. Let's define quality. What is quality? How are we going to prove quality? What is our risk management strategy, and how are we going to deal with risks and issues? How are we going to deal with things of sliders? Is it time, money, budget, cost, feature? Should we be challenged? We're going to go through and deal with configuration management. How are we going to communicate our product backlogs? Where is our product backlog stored? What's the security around these product backlogs? Is there any risk of exposure of this product backlog to competitors? We look at the communication strategy of how we're going to communicate between teams, project managers, and business. We look at creating the high-level project plan to get an indication of time, resource, and budget. We're not doing full-blown analysis here, but we're just trying to figure out what is our cost going to be for this project. What do we need to do in order to deliver on this project? How many people do we need? We then set up certain project controls on how the project is going to manage, and during this gathering of information phase, we might land up slightly refining the business case or changing the business case if needed. Adding some Scrum things into it, a lot of our quality is defined in the definition of done. So we express this in definition of done, and we set up our definition of done. So each team, each stage or iteration or sprint that runs, the team is going to deliver to a definition of done. In terms of configuration management, our biggest artifact here is the product backlog, and how we're going to deal and manage the product backlog. Core things that we're going to discuss from a project control perspective is the product owner is accountable and responsible for keeping a healthy product backlog. We're going to look at our communication strategies. The good thing is Scrum has a lot of events, and with these events, the outcomes and actions on those events are pretty well clearly defined on what has to be done, and how are we going to communicate this information, how are we going to communicate this status of the stage or the sprint, how are we going to communicate the closure of that sprint when we do the review and the retrospectives, how are we going to deal with the retrospective actions. We're going to then create the product backlog for this project, go through an inception workshop with the product owner and building the list of requirements, not analyzing them, just building a list of business related requirements to a level that the team as a whole feel they understand and can quantify and how much work has to be done. This is essential if one needs to get the answer of how much is this project going to cost in the program of work. We set up communication controls between Scrum Master, Project Manager, business, executives, what kind of communication is necessary, and it needs to be clearly defined so we can manage people's expectations. The key element out of here, of this whole process, is the actual list of requirements. We want a healthy backlog. Scrum Master is very key of helping the product owner get on top of this product backlog. The idea here is product owner is responsible for building this list, but they need to be educated and helped. What is a product backlog and how do we articulate and write our product backlog? We then need to get this product backlog ordered. So it's looking at what are the imperative critical stuff. The idea here is to cut out unnecessary waste. Then we want to make sure that the backlog is well understood. There's not no requirements that are ambiguous or too big to understand or comprehend. If anyone goes through and has the feeling of, well, I don't quite understand this backlog, well, this is the time that we want to just get a little bit more information. Well, what do we mean by this? We don't want to go through and say, oh, I want a billing system. Well, what do you want to do? Do you want invoicing? Do you want good return vouchers? What about payment structures? How do we do the printing? There's a lot of information, for example, in that billing system that needs to be clarified. To have something vague as I want billing, it's too ambiguous and one cannot estimate at that level. Teams estimate the project, so business will define the requirements and the accountability of the team to estimate that. Normally agile teams follow a relative estimation cycle through Scrum type training. This is discussed what relative estimation goes through, and through other talks that I've done is the discussion on estimation and the accuracy versus consistency of estimation. But estimation at the end of the day is going to give you that answer of how long is this going to take, how much effort how many people or effort do we need to get this done. This will give you an indication of how many team sizes, what team sizes you need, number of teams, and number of sprints you're going to need to do this project. With this information at hand, we normally go through and create the release release burnout. We might, for example, find out that we need 10 sprints. In true good project management style, we always know there is risk, so we add a little bit of buffer. I might turn around and say with 10 sprints, let's add 20% and have a 20% buffer for things that go wrong. Depending on your risks that you have, this may be a larger number. As the teams are going through and running through each sprint, we start tracking how they are going to that deadline. If they are ahead of schedule, or in the example on the screen, they're a little bit behind schedule, but you'll see it slowly curving in and they're getting back to normal. Project managers might want to create a project plan, especially if there are multiple teams, multiple programs of work. We don't want to go to the level of micromanaging all the requirements, but more towards managing the stages and from a project management side. What are our stages and what are the events of the stage, and how are we tracking with our stages against this release plan? There might be dependencies between different stages in different projects for a program of work. The next is looking at the directing of a project. This is normally done by the product owner or executive, where they will give authority to start initiation of a project. They'll go through at looking at authorizing a stage and justifying a stage, and they also want constant feedback from the initiation stage, what's happening in the stage and at the closure of the project. So in directing a project, the product owner executive authorizes initiation, authorizes the project, authorizes the stage, makes decisions around exceptions if they have occurred, delays, and how to deal with those delays, gives ad hoc direction to the team from a team side, authorizes project closure. However, with Scrum involved, the only differences here that we have is the product owner is actively responsible for managing the product backlog. They're also involved in the team to do constant inspection to mitigate complex risk, to make sure that the team is not going off at a tangent doing the wrong thing. We rather, if things are going wrong, bring it under control earlier and manage those risks. So we giving the ownership into the business of the product backlog, and we getting earlier involvement, so we and constant involvement to mitigate risk and surprises at late in a project. In terms of the project director, the product owner is accountable for keeping a healthy backlog. As a Scrum Master, I would say, hey, product owner, it sucks to be you. Your product backlog is really bad. It's not in a good, healthy state. What are you going to do to improve it? The team cannot accept and do work with a weak product backlog. And then I'll start helping coaching on getting a good product backlog. Product owners need to be fully accountable for it. Teams do not know what the product owner wants. So we want to help the product owners articulate what they want. In terms of the controlling stage done by the project management, in the controlling stage section, they authorize the work package. This is what these are the highest ordered stuff that the product owner wants, taking those to the teams and saying, teams, do this up. If there is a lot of teams, helping coordinate which teams are doing each bit of work packages, but they're always done in the order that the product owner wants them to at the highest value. If things are going wrong, they take corrective actions to help teams solve the impediments that are blocking them. They review the stage of the status. Is this to the quality of the organization? Does this meet the definition of done? So they should be involved in the inspection of that product. If there's issues, they escalate issues and risk to executives. They review the work status packages and report highlights of events to different individuals, different teams. From a Scrum point of view, we want them to remove blocks as well above their current work. One of the challenges, though, that in controlling a stage is to define what is a stage. Is a stage a sprint, or is a stage several sprints that accumulate into a release? This is purely an organizational decision and a management style. We have stages, and it's up to the project managers how they want to report and deal with this. For example, you could be having weekly sprints, but that might be too much overhead for a project manager in a very large program of work to report on. So they might want to actually only be involved every 4 sprints. We might decide to only release to production every 4 sprints because it's difficult to release every week to production. So there's a lot of decisions and discussions that have to be around here of what is a stage. But it's no less than a sprint or no more than a number of sprints. We don't do partial stuff here. Managing the product delivery. Now this is the team or teams that deliver the work. So they are authorized, here you go team, do this work for this time box period, start running and dealing with the work. And this is what managed product delivery is all about. Firstly, the team accepts the work package that they've been given, make sure they understand that work package, then they execute that work package, and then they deliver that work package. If you look at this, perfect alignment with Scrum. Accepting the work package is done in sprint planning. Executing the work package is the sprint time box itself, and the delivery of the work package is the sprint review. If you look at any form of PRINCE2 training, it is limited to this. There's no more in terms of control stage. There's no micromanagement stuff in PRINCE2. It totally is reliant on the team. PRINCE2 just says teams have to accept the work package, execute it, and deliver the package. And Scrum is in a perfect alignment with this. In terms of execution, use Scrum. All right. In the PRINCE2 model, execution is up to the delivery team, the delivery manager to choose. In the software development world or a Scrum team, they follow Scrum 100% and it works. There's no conflict of interest between Prince2 and Scrum. It's within all the documentation on Prince2. So the two work very, very well together. Managing the stage boundaries. So once the stage starts, once the stage ends, there's communication that has to occur. Constantly in the stage boundaries, there's planning that has to go through what's coming in the next stage, how we're going to deal with this next stage. This is outside of the actual working team. It may involve them, but it's constant planning of the next stage. It's producing exceptions, plans should things go wrong, teams are delayed. It's constant updating plans, updating the business case, and reporting on completion of the stage. In the sprint model, planning this next stage. We do this in sprint review and our sprint grooming practice. Accountability is on the product owner. That's the only slight difference here. The exception plan, a lot of information is gathered out of the sprint review and daily scrums on dealing with exceptions if the team are not managing it themselves. Updating the plan, one of the core features in sprint planning, in sprint review, is to update the plan and the product backlog of any uncompleted work or things that I've not done. There might be a need to update a business case, especially if there's impediments or big changes in directions against the plan that product owners have dealt with, and then reporting at the end. Closing a project. A project may be closed on a planned closure, either early because we're eliminating waste and a lot of the features are unnecessary, or on natural conclusion, all work is done. And in some instances, premature closure due to catastrophic failure where the project is terminated and there's no feasibility in running or continuing with this project. In a normal situation, handing over the product, the intellectual property, the product to the business to get going through and using, evaluating then the project, how did it work, so we can do a retrospective on that, and then finally the project manager will close the project and it comes to an end. When we evaluate the project, we just do it via a retrospective style and make sure that we put that into the lessons learned log. From a simple reporting point of view, alright, our sprint burn down gives the health of the team in terms of what is remaining work. The core focus is what tasks are remaining till the end of the sprint. The team is either ahead of schedule or behind schedule. If they're behind schedule, it's constantly going through and asking the team each morning in sprint review, in sprint planning, what are you going to adjust to get back on track? Self-organize, self-manage, make the decisions, make it happen, and that's the team's responsibility to actually try to get that work done. If the team's doing well, it's then a matter of looking at, well, what else can we add into the team to help them get a higher velocity and help them constantly improve. This is a great place to be in, where teams' productivity starts actually increasing. The essential reporting, keep your reporting to the essentials, cut out the waste. A lot of places there's unnecessary reporting. Do what is essential. Release burndowns, and useful for tracking the duration of the project. How are we tracking over a number of sprints? Are we ahead of schedule on all the sprints, or are we not? On the y-axis we have the quantity of work and then all the requirements, and we're burning down those requirements and getting them done. Eventually all requirements will be done, and that is run over several sprints. Blocks, we want to formally communicate blocks, so all project managers, executives, product owners, teams, line managers are aware of blocks, so we can all actively address those blocks. Blocks slow down teams, introduces unnecessary waste, frustration, and cuts the productivity and performance of those teams off. So blocks need to be very well communicated, allowing people to address those blocks. Not dealing with blocks is a pretty big issue in the Scrum world, because that just totally slaughters productivity. Retrospectives, constantly in retrospectives, coming out of changes that the team wants to adapt, and then inspecting whether that has worked or not. And those actions of new things to change should be recorded, and the results of those changes should be recorded, so the business can learn what's working, what's not working. These should be added to the lessons learned log. To wrap up near the end, we've got a few pressure points to be aware of that you're going to go through and deal with when implementing it. Remember, we're dealing in the realm of complexity, and software development is hard. It's a rough road. Software development is not easy, and it's going to take a lot of effort to go through right. Bringing in a lot of changes like Scrum into an organization, things will get worse before they get better. There's a lot of things that are changing, new dynamics, new ways of working. People have to get used to that. If we look at the team dynamics, in the past, business analysts, architects, programmers, testers have not worked together. They've all worked in isolation and handballed each other, normally in a very defensive manner. Now we're putting them together into a team and asking them to collaborate and work. Typical team dynamics, we form this team, everyone's civil up front, and then the misunderstandings and the confusions come in, and the differences of opinion go through, where testers are arguing against business analysts and programmers, and everyone's arguing with each other, and teams naturally go through a storming mode where there's a high amount of debate and arguing. Once they're through that storming phase, they go through a normalizing phase where they're just getting on to with the job. This is normally when they've started and resolved their conflicts, and they know how to work with each other, and they know how to expect with what each other's needs are, and to go through. New teams find this very hard through the storming phase, especially if there's deep embedded cultural challenges in the organization. Once they start normalizing, then it's going through, and the teams can be pushed to start performing. And it's not uncommon to see some teams going up 6, 7, 800% of what they started with in terms of their performance rate when they start working together. As a management team, Scrum Masters, product owners, line managers, project managers, we need to help get teams through the storming phase as quickly as possible, helping them get through that phase, not pushing them, but helping them through that phase. It's quite interesting through observation. When a team's in a storming phase, their velocities are normally very unstable, and the velocities change quite a lot from sprint to sprint. When they normalize, they'll get an average mean. Some sprints higher, some sprints lower, but they within a normal tolerance side. Start helping the teams get through that normalizing stage. It may take a few weeks if the team's very, very cooperative. It could take several months for the team to get through storming phase. Just note, if you ever change a team or change the team dynamic or put new people in place, one of the things is teams will go through that storming phase again. As a management team, my recommendation is to try keep a consistent team from project to project. So the same programmers, the same testers, the same BAs, and they just move from project to project to project as a unit. That cuts out the overhead in the organization of storming. It's just a matter of them normalizing for the new type of work, and then immediately, rapidly start performing. Velocity is the rate of work that they can deliver work to the done side. This is the real rate of work. It's not a guesstimate on terms of effort. It's the way the team, it's the rate at which a team burns down the product backlog. For new teams, velocity is unknown, and therefore, as a project manager, you are at risk of your estimation being way out. It's not common. It's not a problem of Scrum. It's a common with any type of estimation. If you have a new team and you don't have consistency in your estimation, your risk is extremely high of being totally out. So you need to get a quick grasp onto this. My advice to you here is to try and get teams to get through storming phase as quickly as possible, because then you can get to learn their velocities. From a management structure, we want to create a fail-safe environment. We would rather go through a team fail and safely fail and not fear of failing. What that allows us to do is inspect it, be very transparent about it, and then change. Hey team, you didn't meet this objective, it's a fail. Alright, let's acknowledge that. The big challenge here is, team, it sucks to be you now, but what are you going to do to change? And encouraging change. The whole idea of empiricism, inspect and adapt. If you start beating up a team in a fail hard environment, teams are going to be reactive, and then they will start deliberately overestimating, slowing down so they don't get beat up. That's going to have a negative impact to your overall performance of your organization, making it a hostile environment. Instead, rather, let teams fail. Let's be professional about it. Acknowledge the failure, then adjust. So we want to establish fail-safe environments. If they don't meet their objectives on the sprint, well, it's simply the fact is they haven't met their objective in the sprint. Let's find out why, and let's help them change. From a development environment, nothing to do with Scrum or PRINCE2. It's critical that you have a very good development environment for your developers. Good quality machines, things like continuous integration, good tooling before the team starts. If I can give you an analogy, you might be asking a team to build a house, but in building the house, you're turning around to the team, we've got a project, you have to build the house, but unfortunately we don't have tools, so you're going to have to make your own wheelbarrows, your own spades, your own shuffles, your own mixers, and then start building the house. Oh, by the way, we're in the second sprint at the moment, why isn't the roof on? Very unfair to a team. If you do not have a good development environment for the team, this is a project in its own undertaking. Setting up this infrastructure takes a lot of effort and a lot of work. Give the team the tools that they need to build. Supporting of engineering practices. Our industry is changing. Recently there have been a lot of changes in practices around the testing side, the introduction of automation testing, continuous integration, continuous deployment, unit testing, functional testing, behavior-driven development, test-driven development. Lots of changes have been introduced into this industry that encourages and works very well with agile practices and creating high velocity teams and high performance teams. These tools are important for programmers to get, and testers and your team to get used to. I'd encourage learning your teams to learn this technology. That concludes my discussion. My contact details are on screen. You're welcome to contact me through email address, visit my blog site. If there are any public courses that I'm offering on Scrum, you can find that on scrum.org, my Twitter account. And please, if you've watched this, please feel free to hook up with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, we're welcome to change. Hope to see you sometime in the future. And finally, remember, it sucks to be you. So what are you going to change and do about it?